All right. And we'll go. Let's see.
Can you see anything?
Actually, I can see pretty well with these.
Mine are like dark. Like two of my monitors are they're blacked out now because it's.
The problem is my phone doesn't. Whenever I put these on, it doesn't facial recognize me, so I can't open it. I can't hold it up, and it won't open up when I have these things on. Let's see. All right, let's go. 3, 2, and 1. Well, hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Persuasion by the Pint. I'm Jonathan Taylor, along with
Sean McCool. I was trying to think of a call sign real quick. I should have had that ready. I didn't. There we go.
There we go. What is your call sign?
I don't have one. I was just thinking I should have had one ready. I should have had a call sign ready, but I don't.
You should.
What's yours?
And we better, huh?
What's yours?
You know what? I think mine would be because my brother-in-law and my wife teased me. We had this conversation a few days ago when he was over. We were talking, what would our call signs be? And he said, they call me Johnny Bravo a lot of times. Do you remember the old cartoon Johnny Bravo?
Yeah. Well, in the military, I was Snoopy. So maybe I would just be Snoopy.
Snoopy. Oh, I like that.
Yeah. That'd be good for a fighter pilot, right? Red Baron, yep. Snoopy and the Red Baron.
That's right. That's
cool.
Right. That's perfect for a fighter.
So we'll go with Snoopy.
Snoopy. So he shortened mine. Mine would just be Bravo.
Yeah. I like it. It works.
But that's that's a military term. Well, that's a military B for Bravo, right? So it kind of fits.
Yeah. It's the alphabet, but you know.
Well, today we've got a fun show. We're going to be talking. No guests.
Still hearing that music come through. You might want to.
Oh yeah, better. We'll get YouTube will spank us.
Yeah.
Big time.
Yeah.
Today we're going to be talking marketing lessons from some marketing lessons taken from probably the biggest movie box office opening that Tom Cruise has ever had.
Yeah, I was researching the numbers, and as of today, when we're recording this on Friday, June 10th, it was just crossed 600 million worldwide.
Wow.
So yeah, it's still climbing.
Still climbing.
There's a lot of people in my Facebook feed anyway that are seeing this 2 and 3 times. My wife saw it twice. I saw it once, but then she went back with Sydney and saw it. So.
Yeah, we've seen it. Well, I've seen it twice. I went with my kids, my boys earlier this week, went with the wife and my oldest initially to see it, then went with both of my boys earlier this week. And, we were just walking out of the theater like, you know what, this is a movie we could, you could see 3 or 4 times and not really get tired of it because it's just really good. It's well done.
Which we will over the rest of our lifetime, right? It'll come on reruns and everywhere else. It'll be like Independence Day. It's just that movie you have to watch every time it comes on.
Yeah. Yep.
So, we're gonna pull some lessons. I've got 4 lessons that I pulled. I bet at least 1 or 2 of them overlap. So I'll be curious to see what you came up with.
Yep.
So we'll be talking about that on the show, and then we're also going to touch on a book that you picked up. I think we briefly mentioned it a while back.
Yeah,
it's probably been a year and a half though. The Alter Ego.
The Alter Ego Effect.
The Alter Ego Effect by Todd Herman.
Yep. Great book. The subtitle, The Power of Secret Identities to Transform Your Life.
Yes. So this is
very interesting.
This is basically how you turn from Clark Kent into Superman. Those kind of idea. So
yeah, and there's a lot of great examples that we could throw out, and we'll take some examples and then kind of give you ideas on how to apply that for your own marketing.
Yep.
We've got people that we know personally that have their own superhero status, and there's some key ingredients that go into creating that alter ego effect. And we'll get into some of that on.
Now I'll even reveal mine. How about that?
I want to hear this.
Yeah. So stay tuned.
Stay tuned. But first, we've got some beverages to sample. Sean, I've got, I mentioned this a few episodes back because we didn't have an episode last week. Um, the one prior to that, I had this. It's a Dragon's Milk Solera,
Yeah,
and it didn't get I don't think it got a fair rating.
because it was a little too warm.
It was a little too warm.
Yep.
This bad boy's been sitting in, and I promise I mentioned on the show that I feel like I need to give it a fair because I love Dragon's Milk. I need to give it a fair taste test while it's nice and cold.
Yep.
And so this one's been sitting in the fridge. It is nice and icy cold. So we're going to give it a second shot on Persuasion by the Pint.
All right, sounds
It was,
good.
I think I gave it a 3.8, if I remember correctly, 3.7, 3.8, something like that. And
Okay.
which is kind of unusual for me.
Well,
to
this
get
is,
something.
this show's kind of like whose line is it anyway? The points don't really matter. It's just
That's right. Exactly.
just there for comic relief.
Yep.
So I'm having from 903 Brewers, another Texas brewer.
Oh, nice. What is that? Cookie?
Inspired by white chocolate macadamia nut cookie. So it's a cream ale inspired by white chocolate macadamia nut cookie. That's a mouthful to say right there. And this is a cream ale, so you can see it's and look at that glass doing its thing, pulling the.
Wow, look at that. That's some action going on there.
I know, right? Isn't that cool? Glass really works. This is the
very nice.
The Bee Hoppy glass featured a while back, but yeah, man, that's amazing. Just that little etching in the glass makes it do that. That is wild.
So absolutely that's cool. So that's the design of the glass causes it to
bubble up like that at the bottom.
Wow.
So and it's the shape helps, but it's actually there's an etching on the bottom of the glass that actually makes that happen.
Is it like a laser etching on the glass?
I guess so, yeah. Yeah.
That's really
but Sam Adams, like the original Sam Adams glass for their summer wheat, it has the same thing in it. Like if you go to a restaurant that has that glass that they show on the commercials, it'll do the same thing.
Okay.
You just don't notice it as much because theirs is a little bit cloudier, but this is nice and clear, so you can really see.
No, that's good, Mark. I mean, that's beautiful. I did not know that you could. That's etching on the bottom would. Contribute to that. That's cool.
I'm gonna have to take a little video of that, throw that on the old Instagram, the gram.
Yeah, that's some stock footage right there, baby. All right.
So let's
cheers
it up.
Whew. Oh man,
I forgot to say that mine is a 6.5% alcohol by volume.
Oh, okay.
We've brewed the cookie flavor into a cream ale. Flavors of rich macadamia nuts and sweet white chocolate accentuate a biscuit malt base, eliciting fresh baked cookie notes. This dessert-inspired cream ale starts sweet and finishes with smooth balance. Definitely starts sweet. I will say that. Do you feel like yours is any different now that it's cold?
It's gonna get a bump on the rating.
All right, nice.
It's not gonna get a huge bump, but it's gonna get a little bit of a bump.
Okay. All right. Well, I'll go ahead and. This is pretty rich for an ale. I mean, I guess it is a cream ale, but it's pretty rich. It's up there in the sweet category for sure.
Man, you said that's macadamia, right?
Yeah, white chocolate macadamia nut cookie. So, if you go to an open house with a model home, that's what they're always serving, those white chocolate macadamia nut cookies. I'm going to give this a 3.5. It's a little too sweet, but it's good. But one of these is enough. Like you wouldn't want
I can imagine
of these.
Yeah.
Especially when it's 105 degrees out here in Austin today. I mean, I'm inside, so I don't know why I'm complaining. It's fun to complain when it gets that hot.
Right. Yeah. So I can imagine that's got a sweet taste to it. And, those
too sweet,
those that are too sweet, you can only have one of those.
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely like a dessert beer.
Yeah. On this one, I'm going to give the final score for the Dragon's Milk Solera. I'm going to give it a 4.3. So it gets a
All
nice
right.
little bump. It gets
Very
into the
nice.
4 range. It's good cold for
See,
sure.
that's just another life lesson right there, that the environment really does matter.
It
The
does.
environment you put your stuff in, yourself in, really does
Yeah.
matter.
Well,
Somebody
just
might
in
be
that
judging you as a 3.7 when you're really a 4.3. You just need to be in the right environment.
it's all about timing. Life
Yeah.
is a lot of times life is about timing.
Yeah. That's some good wisdom right there. We can
And
end the show.
second chances too. There's another lesson, right? Second
Yeah,
chances.
second chances. Man, we're turning this into a personal development show.
I see some of your posts on Facebook about on failure. So
Yeah.
failure,
Yeah, there's a failure.
there was a
in that
failure
lesson.
initially, but the response was, let's try again, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Let's give it another shot.
Well, and reputation, right? Because
Yep.
Dragon's Milk had a reputation that was good. So
Mhm.
you were able to give it another chance because it had
That's
a good
right.
reputation.
That's right.
Man, there's all kinds of lessons from beer. Who knew? The more you drink, the more lessons there are.
A lot of business lessons that we can pull from a bottle of beer.
Mm-hmm. Like I said, the more you drink, the more lessons come out.
That's right.
They may not be as good, the more lessons come out. But all right, well, let's jump into the show.
Yes.
Top Gun. Secrets of marketing and sales from Top Gun marketing secrets and sales, however you want to spin it. That's what we're talking about today.
Awesome.
So got the aviators, put them
Ready
over the top of
ready
them.
to rock.
I'm gonna have to put them over my reading glasses so I can still see. Is that weird?
So I'm going to throw out one because I don't really have. I mean, you got your two or three.
I got four.
You got four. Okay,
Man,
so
I got
I'm going to
four.
throw
I
out.
came prepared.
You came prepared. I'm winging it.
Okay.
But one that stood out to me multiple times from seeing the movie is how it's like framing from the get-go.
Yes.
Because this movie was most people know this movie was actually filmed and it was prepared to be released back in 2020 because they did all the
I've got the
production.
number. I did the research. I got the numbers here.
Oh, yeah?
Original release date, July 12th, 2019.
Oh, okay. All right.
They pushed that back for some filming reasons and editing reasons.
Right.
Then it was scheduled for June 26, 2020.
Okay.
Something got in the way there. I can't remember what happened.
Yeah, I don't remember what happened back then.
Something happened. And then it finally came out. So yeah, it's been sitting kind of on ready since July of 2019. So 3 years.
Yeah.
3 years.
3 years. So there's a little bit of anticipation. It's like, when is this movie going to come out? So I know there's a lesson right there. I think anticipation keeps people just wondering, okay, when is this sequel coming out? But one thing that I noticed at the very beginning, and it struck me, it's incredible because you don't see this, but Tom Cruise, do you notice Tom Cruise at the very beginning, he comes on personally.
Yep.
And talks about the work that was put into it.
Yes.
And the effort. And he also said something really important that you don't hear very often from Hollywood, is that we hope you enjoy this movie because we did it for you. Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
So to me, that was just amazing because to me, you're just primed right there from the beginning to just like it, just from that message alone.
Yeah, it's classic like reciprocity, right? Somebody tells you thank you and we appreciate you and thanks for coming out. And yeah, that was my number one thing. And literally when we were in the theater watching it, you could hear people like after that little pre-roll, you could hear people like, oh wow, that was pretty cool.
Yeah.
Like you could hear people mumbling about how cool that was.
Yeah.
And just kind of how different it was. So,
because you don't get that first of all, you don't get that from Hollywood, right?
Yeah.
Most people look at Hollywood figures, we go to be entertained, but we think most of these people on the they don't care anything. They're doing it for obviously their own career, but genuine, whether he meant it or not, it came across from his persona. It came across very genuine.
Yes.
And, just thanking the gratitude there. And then that last little bit, that last line where he says, 'cause we did it for you, we put this together for you. And
And
that,
that makes you wonder. I mean, what we've talked about on psychology and,
mhm,
framing and priming, all the different things we've talked about on this show
right.
makes you wonder how much of an effect that has had on ratings. Like the
Sure.
Rotten Tomatoes score and the Cinemas Plus, all the different scores that are getting,
Hmm.
just through the roof ratings.
Right.
And yeah, it's a great movie, but I wonder how much that has subconsciously influenced people.
Oh, yeah, no
I mean,
doubt.
it has to. This all the studies we've seen would say
Mhm.
it absolutely affects
Right.
the ratings.
Yep.
So, yeah, that was definitely on mine. Like, um, the pre-roll thank you message, just a way
Mhm.
to kind of pre-frame,
Yep.
and thank people in advance, so that then they, now they feel more obliged to give you good feedback on the film.
Absolutely.
So that was brilliant. So that was definitely number one. Um, Anticipation, I had that down too. So I actually wrote down use delays and setbacks to build anticipation. Because
Yeah.
then what they've done over the last 2 or 3 years is there's been lots of articles, lots of interviews. I mean, Cruise and some of the other cast have gone around
Oh,
the
sure.
world and really, did a lot of pre-work before the opening. Got lots of
Yeah.
good press, lots of all that kind of stuff. So they were able to use that. And one of the things that I was reading that Tom Cruise kept saying in all his interviews was, you know, this needs to be seen on the big screen. This needs to be
Mm.
seen on the big
Yeah.
screen.
Right.
And he even put it in his contract, this will not be streamed for release.
Right.
Like it has to be, I think they got like a 10 or 12-week exclusive or something like that
Yeah.
for in the theaters.
Mhm.
Um, like theaters committed to, I think it was might have even been 120 days. I can't remember exactly what it was, which is a long run for the theater.
Sure.
So yeah, they used that extra time to create the scarcity and urgency that when it does come out, you got to see it on the big
Oh, yeah.
screen.
Right.
You want to see it before it goes to streaming, before it goes to,
Yeah.
paid movie channels and all that kind of stuff. So
Mhm.
yeah, definitely the anticipation there of that build up and taking advantage of the build up.
Sure. Yeah. Well, I even remember I don't know if you watched any of the NFL, the playoff games,
Hmm.
back, I mean, that was back in what, December? And they were
Yeah,
doing like I don't know if you remember the AFC championship game where Tom Cruise is doing
like the
he's doing
pregame.
the pregame where, is the Bengals versus the Chiefs, right?
Yeah, it was like
And
the
so,
pregame hype trailer.
yeah, and it was like using the Top Gun. I mean,
Yeah,
obviously it was promoting Top Gun,
yeah,
but it was really cool the way they did that, because
yeah,
you had the background music and everything going, and introducing both of these teams. So, I mean, good marketing. I mean,
yeah.
obviously building that anticipation. So,
Well, and they did a really good job of telling, and this is another point that I had, which was talk about values and how you're different. And
yeah.
so their talking points when they were pushing the movie was we didn't use any CGI or very, very
Mhm.
little,
Right.
which is a direct kind of punch at Marvel and all the CGI they're using and really everybody else
Yeah.
these days.
Right.
You
Right.
know, probably Jurassic too, because they knew that was coming out.
Sure.
Jurassic comes out today.
Right.
Um, so it was real planes. We had 6 cameras in the cockpit. We went through 3 months of training with the actors on how to be in a plane like this and fly. And
Yep.
like they laid out all this stuff of what made the movie so unique and what was going to make it special.
Mhm.
And so you were kind of looking and anticipating and excited about, oh, here's like an old fashioned, a movie done the old fashioned way, kind of.
Right.
So it wasn't like all these fancy dancy computers and
Yeah.
CGI and all that kind of stuff. So,
Right.
and knowing the target market was guys like us, Gen X, people who
Mhm.
saw it, the original in the 80s, like, which is point number 3 of 4, which was nostalgia.
Yeah.
You
Big time.
play it on the nostalgia of obviously a huge hit. But I thought they did a really good job of mixing in the old music, keeping the
Yes.
original soundtrack, like the original Top Gun theme song
Yep.
that they literally opened the movie with.
Mhm.
So you were right back there in
Oh,
1980,
absolutely.
whatever that was,
Yep.
6, 7.
Tweaked it a
Um,
little bit, but for the
yeah,
most part, it's like the same. It's the same song, but you can tell that they've tweaked it a little bit, but it's great. And then obviously that when the first they kind of lead into the Kenny Loggins
Mhm.
danger zone,
Yeah.
which is just like that fires you up right there. I mean,
Yeah.
that's like another priming effect where not
Exactly.
only are you using priming, but you're also, using
Yeah,
nostalgia and
that
priming at the
first
same time.
5 to 10 minutes, like, they made sure you were back in 1986 or
That's
7
right.
or whenever that was, like,
Exactly.
you were there, like, that
Yep.
was and I think that was just and if you haven't seen the movie before, you immediately got the same feel that people who saw it back then had, so
Well, it's
it kinda brought everybody together.
similar opening sequence to the
Yeah,
original where they're on the flight, they're on the aircraft carrier, all the, activity that's going on in the aircraft carrier, the planes coming and going. So similar opening to the original. So
yeah,
they kind of take you back and put you in that nostalgic feel. And then they give you they prime you with that music, man. It's just awesome.
yeah, and then within the first, 15 minutes and there's no spoilers here, I mean, there's not really a
No,
spoiler for this kinda movie,
right.
um, but, with I'd say in the first 15 minutes, he's on his motorcycle, you know,
Hmm.
um, racing the jet down the runway.
Yep.
Like a lot of those key scenes were duplicated and freshened up for this movie. So just
Right.
really taking advantage of the nostalgia. I mean, I thought they did a really good job. They knew this was going to be a very nostalgic piece that, Gen X was going to be coming out in droves, but bringing
Hmm.
their older kids, teenage kids to see it as well. So there was enough flashbacks
Yeah.
so that you could keep up with what happened in the previous movie,
Right.
but not so many
Absolutely.
that that it was boring or it was too much. And there
Hmm.
was even some stuff like I was trying to figure out. Tamara and I, as we were watching, we were trying to figure out who's Penny. Like that sounds familiar, but I don't.
Right.
We actually had to look it up when we left the theater. We're like, oh yeah, that
Admiral's
one,
daughter, right? I
yeah, that
mean,
one scene. Like, yeah, I'd forgotten about that, but because we're like, because
well, it's
because
just
Penny's
briefly
house was
mentioned in
the
the first one, so you kind
yeah,
of
it's one
gloss over it.
sentence. Yeah.
Yeah.
But well, because the house that she was in looked very much like the house from that Charlie was in the original.
Hmm. Yeah.
So that was the only part that was confusing to me, but it
Yeah.
kept me tuned in. So
Yeah.
yeah, those were the big four things I saw. Like the pre-roll thank you message as a way to
Hmm.
kind of prime and appreciate and the audience. Talking about going on tour before and really talking about how you're different.
Hmm.
What's your USP? Putting it in our marketing language. We're not using CGI. These are real planes.
Hmm.
We're really pulling the G's and all this stuff. Um, the nostalgia between the
Hmm.
music, the flashback, and the storylines, and then taking advantage of the roadblocks and setbacks to
Yeah.
build anticipation. So
Right.
those are the big things I saw.
Yeah. I think you might be able to add one more thing into, and I think that's the all-American kind of hero.
Hmm.
It's bringing that back where
Yeah.
you look at a lot of today's movies, and it's kind of the anti-hero or the guy that's really, sometimes he's not the greatest hero in the world.
Yeah.
But I think there's a little bit of throwback and nostalgia to a guy that, really is, the guy that we grew up kind of, admiring in a lot of the
Yeah.
the big screens that, wasn't
Well,
perfect by any means. I mean, the guy's not perfect by any means, but,
he still has the
just
flawed character, which everybody you got to have in
you
a
got to
good
have a flaw.
character,
Yeah, exactly.
and Maverick definitely has those.
Right.
But he he has them for principled reasons
Hmm.
and
Yeah.
things like that
Yeah.
that we all appreciate.
Yep. But I guess what I'm trying to think about is a guy that he knows. I think there's a line in the movie where the the current this that colonel at the very beginning says, you're a dying breed.
Yeah.
We look at it with, we're surrounded by all this new technology with drones and everything and he's like, you're on the way out. You're a dying breed. You're gonna be a relic here pretty soon.
Yeah.
And that the attitude of like, not today.
Yeah.
It's kind
Maybe
of
so, but not. Yeah. Maybe so,
fighting
but not
back
today.
against the the technocrats
Which is
today.
exactly where the target audience
Oh
Gen
yeah,
Xers, that's where we're at right now. You
right.
know, it's
Fighting the
like,
technocrats,
yeah,
man. So yeah, I thought that was pretty good.
fighting the TikTokocrats. So
But
yeah, the other thing I did write down was I found it very like politically neutral too, which was refreshing.
very, yeah, yep.
Like it didn't seem to have any,
No agenda, right?
green agenda or
Right.
political agenda.
Mhm.
It's just a good story.
Right.
Um, Obviously, there's a bad guy, but that you
Mhm.
kind of got to have that in a military themed movie.
Sure.
But it didn't get out of hand with
Who could
all of this stuff.
imagine a movie without a political,
I know.
without a political message? That they're not trying to shove down your throat. So
Yeah, because that was one of the things that people were complaining about with the last Marvel movie with
yeah.
Doctor Strange. It
Yep.
had a little bit of
Hmm.
wokeness going on with it, so
Right.
and
Right.
it turned a lot of people off. So
Absolutely.
and although it still did really well, but it looks like Top Gun will pass it.
Blow it out. Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I was actually surprised at how well um, Universe of whatever had done Doctor
Hmm.
Strange movie.
Hmm.
I think it's actually at 900 million right now.
Wow.
Yeah,
Okay.
so
Yeah.
it did a lot better, but nobody's talking about it though.
No, I mean,
It's quietly people are seeing it because there's nothing
mhm.
else out after.
Right. Right.
Like Top Gun last week had 75% of the box office receipts.
Sure. Yeah. I can imagine.
I mean, that's
And we'll
unheard of
probably continue on, even with the release. You said Jurassic Park's coming
today.
out today, right? So
Yeah, it'll be interesting. There's a lot of people have said that's the early reviews are it's awful. So we'll
yeah,
see.
it looks awful. So
That it's just too much of the same thing,
yeah.
which is ironic, right? Because we're talking about Top Gun, which is a sequel that is very similar to the first one, and everybody
Mhm.
loves it. But the early reviews on Jurassic, I can't remember what they're actually calling this one, but
Mhm.
is that it's too much the same
Right.
of the previous ones. Of course,
Right.
there's been like 6 of those, not just
Mhm.
2. So that
And
makes a
maybe it's,
difference.
who knows? Maybe it's because there's a distance between the original,
Mhm. I
quite a
don't know.
bit, but I don't know. I love to get feedback from I've got two teenagers, and
Yeah.
obviously you got, a couple of kids in their 20s.
Yep.
So it's always interesting to get feedback from the younger generation. They
Yeah.
see a movie like this. So,
Yeah. What
I
did
was
your
talking to my
kids? Because your kids are 16, 17,
16 and
16.
18. Yeah.
Yeah.
So they loved it,
Yeah.
and the youngest had only seen part of the original Top Gun and still loved this movie
Yeah.
because, like you said, you don't need to see the original because um, there's enough in the movie where it's, taking people back, to what happened in the original movie. So,
Right.
but no, they loved it. And I think one of the things they loved is they get tired of it's funny because this younger generation,
These
you know,
kids.
these kids, I think they get tired of the political stuff in movies,
Yeah.
and it was refreshing from their standpoint to see a movie that was kind of just, you know, it didn't have an
Just
agenda.
entertainment.
It was just entertainment alone, and it
Yeah.
was just a good movie, fun to watch.
What a
And
concept.
my youngest talked about the lack of CGI, which
Hmm.
he hates. And it's pretty, you can tell, CGI from non-CGI, and
Yeah.
the technology that they implemented in this movie with all the cameras.
Yeah.
Interesting story too, from a standpoint that Tom Cruise said, he wasn't going to do a sequel to this movie until they had the technology in place to be able to do it. Um,
Yeah.
so that took some time. That's another thing that took time to.
Yeah. Now
Uh,
there's rumors of Top Gun 3 coming out already, but we'll see.
we'll see. I don't know.
Yeah. It's got 2 more Mission Impossibles coming out. So
I
who
know,
knows?
I know he does. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
this is really upped his career, and he's only 59 years old, Sean. So
I know.
I think he's got a few years ahead of him.
The way he takes care of himself. Absolutely. So, but, yeah. So, I mean, I'm curious why you told me before the show that the beach scene was actually your favorite scene, but you didn't bring that up on the show here. So,
Oh yeah, 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 yeah. The beach scene from the original is a lot of fun, and there's
yeah.
a lot of things that go into that. Now the beach scene from this one's a little bit different because I thought
Yeah.
they were going to do, even before I saw the movie, I thought they were going to do a similar volleyball, but it's a little
Yeah.
bit different on this one.
Yeah. But it was cool how they took again, it's almost the same scene,
Yep.
you know, and they made it fresh and new.
Yep.
You know, it was just really well done. How you can take something and it was so similar yet so different and fresh.
Yep.
That's not easy to pull off. So,
Absolutely. And the album's fantastic too.
oh yeah, I saw
Lady
today
Gaga's. Yeah.
that it is also the album has broken all kinds of records.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah. Yeah. There's no song in that album that, because I just download it, and every song in there is really good. So it's
Yeah.
good.
So I was looking for and
But the
I
Lady Gaga song is really good. Not a huge Lady Gaga fan, but that was really good.
yeah, so it's like just crushing it on Spotify. I don't know the actual numbers, but it's definitely breaking some records as well. So yeah, I remember listening to that original soundtrack on cassette in my 1984 Escort GT, and I would drive when I used to. I lived in Athens, but I still went to school in Madison County, which was the next county north, to finish
Yeah.
out my senior year.
Right.
So it was like a 25-minute drive, and that was usually my soundtrack as I was driving because I just pretend like I was driving a fighter jet in my 80 horsepower
Yeah.
Escort GT.
Yep.
So, but yeah, it's crazy. All right, well, let's move on to the alter ego effect.
Yes. The power of secret identities to transform your life. So I really, I think you had brought this book to my attention a year or so ago.
Yeah, it's been a while.
And I originally just downloaded it when you mentioned it. I downloaded it on Audible and started listening to it. I was just fascinated by some of the examples that he gives.
Mhm.
One of my all-time favorite football players, Bo Jackson, he
Yeah.
mentions him in the book, and just, how he would go about in his career as a player, putting on this persona, all right,
Yep.
on the football field. And I found that fascinating. I was like, I didn't even know that, I've never heard that. I've listened to, interviews and biographies of Bo Jackson, and I've never heard him talk about, having an alter ego effect on the football field where he embodied, just this gladiator on the field.
Yep.
And I thought, man,
And what
that's
was
really
his? Do
interesting.
you remember what his was? Was it like a train or was it? I can't remember what it was.
Yeah, something to that effect that just could not be stopped.
Yeah.
And if you've ever watched, scenes of Bo Jackson or even guys like Herschel Walker, those almost in the same, era back in the 80s,
Yeah.
those guys. And I think Bo Jackson probably would have been, had it not been for injuries, could have probably gone on and been a phenomenal NFL player. But
Yep.
he tried to do everything. He was, Bo knows he played baseball for the Royals, and he did everything, and probably wore himself out a little bit on the field.
Yeah. I was looking. Let's see. Yeah. So Todd, the author of this book, he ran into him in like a green room at an event.
Yeah.
They were both speaking, and Bo Jackson said Bo Jackson never played a down of football in his entire life. And then he went on to say, what did he say? Oh, it was Jason? Is that who it was? Like from Friday the 13th?
Yeah. Yeah. He was like the,
Yeah, he
the
said,
hockey mask guy.
yeah.
Yeah. Jason.
Jason. So not a train. I was way off. So Jason from Friday the 13th, because he was unstoppable. Like no matter
Right.
what he did, he just
Yeah.
kept going throughout the movies. So
Mhm.
that was the identity that Bo Jackson took on the field with him was Jason from Friday the 13th.
No, not Fred. Is it Freddy?
Jason.
No, it's Jason. Okay.
Yeah, Jason.
Freddy
Jason.
is from Nightmare. Yeah, Nightmare on Elm Street.
Yeah. All these,
I don't know my horror movies, man. I never got into
Gen
that.
X movies. So yeah,
but yeah, I mean, basically an unstoppable force.
right.
That was his persona, and that was pretty much Jason and all those. I think those Friday the 13th. No matter how
Yeah.
much they tried to kill him, he just kept coming back. So
Yeah, Chucky, the whole crew.
But no, I think it's a great. He talks about this like in every everybody, how they put on their own persona. So there's a separate persona, or an alter ego to someone's career. And we see this all the time, but rarely do we embody this in our business, where we really, kind of emulate, we picture who we want to come across as. We just kind of go about and just get into it. But rarely do we think about, who do we want to emulate,
Yeah.
that signifies whatever characteristic that we want to, uh, show or present in our business. And he gives a lot of examples in this movie, or in this book, as to how to do that. And there's a few chapters that stand out to me. One is on the creating that origin. We've talked about it
Yep.
on past podcast episodes, having your hero origin story.
Yep.
And I think everybody should kind of look at that. I think a great way, he mentions talking about, reading biographies or autobiographies about people throughout history. You can get a lot of great examples just from reading other people's stories and how they go about it. I've got a lot of biographies on my bookshelf that I take from. I pulled some out here, Sean, just to give you an example.
Are these some of your favorites?
These are some of my favorites.
Okay.
So I pulled some of my favorites off of the bookshelf behind me. One is Me Inc. by Gene Simmons.
Okay.
Right.
Yep.
And I don't know if anybody that knows Gene Simmons.
Or you talk about a persona. Man, Kiss.
Oh, yeah. Big time.
Yeah.
And so this is a great book. I know we're talking about alter ego, so I don't want to go off on too many rabbit trails, but I want to just give you an examples of like people who like fall into whatever category that you want to, whatever kind of you're trying to emulate,
Mhm.
in your business. But one of my favorite books, Gene Simmons, it says, "Build an army of one, unleash your inner rock god, win in life and business." So great book, easy read. But I've always admired him, not just because I was never a big Kiss fan, but I've always admired him from a business standpoint, because he's into a lot of stuff. And he's a great marketer, by the way. I mean, he's just a brilliant marketer.
Yeah, when you see that Kiss was just a marketing tool, and how much, and he talks in that book about, and that book's pretty old now. I mean, it's been out for a while.
Yeah, it is.
He talks about how much the Kiss, the four of them, that image with the four different faces, like how much that's worth, just that image.
Easily.
And it's an income stream for him to this day.
Mm-hmm.
The rights to that, if people want to put it on t-shirts or wherever else, but it's just, and it's interesting that you would pick that one first, because that'll line up with my alter ego that I've picked.
Oh, cool.
So there's a little teaser again, but so what else you got over there? You got Gene Simmons.
Another one I loved was Alfred Hitchcock. Right.
Okay. Yeah.
So
what is about Alfred that you like?
Most people don't know he's a very good showman in terms of marketing. If you read the stories, most people, he's got, every character that you read has flaws. One of his that set him apart was he knew how to, he was kind of like, we talked about Tom Cruise setting the stage for Top Gun. He knew how to set the stage for every movie that he did. He was great at marketing. And this book gets into some of the details of just how he would go about really framing or creating that framing effect beforehand. And a lot of it was just, how he would organize, events, or, get media attraction to a lot of the movies that were coming out at the time.
Yeah.
But he was just a very good showman, during his time. So
can you imagine what Alfred Hitchcock could do with like social media shorts and things these days?
Right. Oh yeah.
TikToks and like, I mean, it would just be next level. Like, I just think you would, I was actually thinking the other day, like, where would the world be if Steve Jobs was still alive today?
Oh, wow.
There's another classic
Mhm.
personality from our time.
Yeah, and that's another biography that you could pull from
Yeah.
because it's fascinating. All of these people that we talk about have major flaws,
Yeah.
major flaws. But the cool thing is you can pull from a lot of the things that they did really well
Yeah.
in
So
their
what are some of the
lives.
other ones you got there? I'm curious.
Houdini,
Of course.
love this
Yes.
book. Another one, fascinating with this, the life and times of the world. I've actually got a couple of books on Houdini. This one is the life and times of the world's greatest magician. I also have one called the subtitle is America's First Superhero, which is even better because it's a more in-depth uh, study of Houdini. This one
Yeah.
kind of gives an overview of some of his, some of the magic and some of the things that he did, and it's more colorful and it gives a lot of examples of some of the ads that were out at his time.
Yeah.
But another good showman, right? Another
Absolutely.
good, extremely good marketer. I mean, just
Well, and talking about showmen, our friend David Dutton, his
yes.
favorite is
Hmm.
P.T. Barnum.
Yep.
He
Yep.
loves anything about P.T. Barnum. That's probably,
Mhm.
in fact, I would say if David was having this conversation, P.T. Barnum would be his alter ego
I
for
know for
sure.
a fact. And in fact, I was talking to him this week, and he won't mind me saying this, but he found someone. He's always looked for an original copy of P.T. Barnum's book "Dollars and Cents," a book back from the late 1800s. You
Yeah.
probably know this book. And he had a collector guy reach out to him this week, found a copy for him.
Nice.
$500, original copy back
Oh,
from the 1800s.
yeah.
And the
Yeah.
condition is nice. So,
Nice.
yeah, definitely going to jump on that.
Yeah.
Um,
All right. What else?
um, yeah. So a few others, that fall into, people that, and you want to find people that obviously you want to emulate characteristics of them in your own alter
Yep.
ego. A few of mine that I've always admired. I've always been an admirer of Teddy Roosevelt.
Okay.
Not a big fan of some of his politics, and that's the thing. You have to separate. Obviously, there's some aspects that you have to separate the persona from the maybe the politics and
Well, I
and
mean, you have to, the what he talks about in this book is you get to pick and choose. Like you don't have to take
absolutely,
everything about
yeah,
a person. In
that's
fact,
right.
one of the pages I'm looking at, it's page 151 because we got the same copy of the book here.
Hmm.
Um, he talks about, you can, if you've decided to combine two or more sources of inspiration, you can combine their names to come up with a new name,
Absolutely.
like, which would be like Black Wonder, a combination of Black Panther and Wonder Woman. Buddha Man, a
Mm,
combination
yeah.
of Buddha and Superman, which is a really
Yep.
interesting combination. Napoleon Patton, so Napoleon Bonaparte and General Patton.
Yep. That's right.
So,
Speaking
and
of
Grant
which, one of my books here,
Patton,
A Genius for War.
there you go.
I love it because I mean, and that plays into obviously, some things that I want to emulate, but don't mean to
Yeah,
interrupt
and
it.
these don't have to be people. Like another example here is Grandma Bear. So you're grandma, so it's nobody necessarily famous, and a
Hmm.
bear. Like maybe
Yeah.
there's something you like about the way a bear handles itself and the way your grandma showed up. So
Right.
it's Grandma Bear becomes your alter ego. And then the last one on this little list is Sonic Bond. So Sonic
Hmm.
the Hedgehog,
Hmm.
also a movie coming out,
Yep.
and James Bond. Like that's a crazy combination, but
That is
but
crazy.
that may be just the thing that you need to click so that you take on, at any given moment the characteristics of those people. So I'm
Yeah.
curious if you were to put together some of these things,
Hmm.
like who would you combine and what parts would you combine and who would be, or maybe you've already figured out your alter ego, like who would that be?
There's aspects of all of these people that I really love. I mentioned Teddy Roosevelt. One of the
Yep.
things I love about him was he was an adventurer. He was a man that was, given to taking up challenges, right? Overcoming
Yep.
challenges. That don't know about his history, he had severe health problems as a kid. I mean, the kid
Yeah.
was, he was really had some health challenges early on growing up. And one of the ways that he overcame those by simply was committing himself to exercise. Actually, he committed himself to exercise regimens, and he became a really active person. Spending time outside, going on hikes, going on hunts, and I mean, he was just an active individual, and and he voracious reader too. I'm really amazed by the amount of stuff that he could read. Was I guess do you call it ambidextrous, where you can write with
Both
both
hands.
hands?
Yep.
Yeah, dude would write. He could write with both hands and at the same time.
That's just insane.
It's like
I think
so.
Teddy Roosevelt was the one who. It was Roosevelt, and I think Kennedy reemphasized it later.
Mhm.
That you should be able to walk for 50 miles with a load on your back,
Yes.
which is what the Star course that I did with Go
Mhm.
Ruck a couple
Mhm.
years ago is based on.
Yeah.
It's that 50 miles in 24 hours.
Sure.
I think that originally came from Roosevelt as
Yep.
like a standard for manhood. It's like you ought to be able to walk 50 miles in a day,
Right.
with a load on your back.
Right. Yeah.
Which is
that's
no joke.
That's no joke. Yeah, exactly.
So,
one of my all-time favorite stories of Teddy Roosevelt is as he was giving a speech, someone shot him in the chest. He literally got shot in the chest, and he would not stop speaking. They tried to get him to the to the ambulance and rush him off to the hospital, but he refused to go until he had finished his speech. And
that's awesome.
And and so, I mean, ultimately, that's a man's, obviously that's a man's man today. You
And the
wouldn't see that.
man, TV ratings would have been awesome for that.
But, thankfully, and here's the thing, he had, because of his exercise regimen, he worked out a lot, built his body up. They say because he had worked out so much, his chest, the bullet lodged in his chest and didn't make it too far back because of, he'd built a lot of muscle up.
Wow.
And so did not hit any vital organs. And
that's
so
some serious muscle when you can stop a bullet. I'm not there yet.
It's amazing. And so that's one of my favorite stories of Teddy Roosevelt.
Of course, I guess the bullets were a little weaker back then than they are today.
Yeah. I don't think he could have survived a high caliber.
Probably not. Yeah. So, cool. So, have you figured out like an alter ego as you're reading this?
Yeah. So I'm trying to put some things together. Obviously,
because it's a process. Like you really have to kind of think through it and be like, some people it just comes to them real quick. Other people, it took me a while, and it was after I put the book down that I was talking to somebody else about theirs, and then a couple ideas popped in for me. So where are you at right now in that process?
Well, I've showed you. I think I've sent you some some clips of an acronym I'm working on for the sales platform. Building up a kind of that sales warrior title.
Yep.
And so I think a lot of what I'm trying to do is take in a lot of my own experience. You and I both have background in the military.
Yep.
One of the things that I've used in a lot of just my own sales and marketing recently, and I've shared some of this on sales letters that have done really well. They've been really receptive. Is using my background not only in the military but just as a in reconnaissance, right? Understanding what to look out for, understanding, looking out for the dangers out there, and so I've kind of used that in a non-cheesy way in a lot of my sales and marketing in the sales letters that I send out to my customers that say, use it nonchalantly. When I was in the military, I was in reconnaissance, and one of the things that I would do is really look out for all of the dangers and pitfalls that might, be a problem for the main body. So my job was to protect the main body beforehand and look out for any problems along the way before they came through. And so that's what I want to do for you. I want to look out for. I want to,
that's kind of good.
Be your own reconnaissance, and making sure that you don't have unforeseen problems that arise from disruption, supply chain problems, and all these things. So I try to tie that, that background into that. So, and it's worked well. In a lot of ways, I'm not trying to get some, this thank you for your service, respect, or all of this
No.
stuff. That's great and everything, but that's not what I'm out for. I'm
Yeah.
out to tie in a story of what I used to do and how that relates to what I do now. And
Yeah,
people
and
kind of
how you
tie
can
those.
help people now,
That's right.
right?
Yeah.
Not what you did for them in the past, but like
Right.
how you can help them right now today because of the
Absolutely.
skills you developed
Yep.
back then.
Yep.
Yeah.
Exactly. So yeah, and in that process, that's one area. And then, like we were talking about, I'm trying to develop on the bigger stage on the platform of the Sales Warrior platform of just looking. And I've sent you an acronym, a warrior, for
Mhm.
all of those that I'm trying to encompass.
Yeah.
And then I'm trying to put that together with, some examples of guys today that I admire. And then some of the past examples, like, Teddy Roosevelt and, uh, you know, s- you know, Patton, and then some other guys. I read a lot of different stuff. I'm trying to remember the guy that wrote. He's Jocko, the guy
Jocko
that,
Willink,
yeah, that's the guy.
Extreme Ownership.
Yep, yep. I read some of his stuff and I like that. So I'm trying to like take in a lot of the different things, and I want it to be from my voice, but take in a lot of the lessons that they share and the
Yeah.
things that I like about them and incorporate that. So I'm not there yet,
Well,
on that platform, but
yeah, I
it's a
mean,
process, like you said.
if you were to really go back and I think if you were to spend some time really unpacking the however long your training was post basic for
Hmm.
recon
Hmm.
specialty, that MOS, like
Yep.
if you were to really and maybe even look up like the current, MOS training guide for recon, like
Yeah.
there's probably some stuff in there you've forgotten
Oh
that
yeah.
as soon
Big
as you
time.
saw it, you'd be like, oh yeah, I
Yeah.
forgot about that. And you'd immediately see an analogy like that. I think that could be really,
Oh, absolutely.
really good
Yeah.
to go even deeper on that
Hmm.
because it is really cool skill. I mean, when I was in the military, we like, we were in the old guard. We buried people and did
Yeah.
funerals, and that
Right.
doesn't translate super well to. to
Yeah. Yeah.
it's not
Yeah,
quite
I mean,
as
still, it's your
attention to detail
service.
was the
Yeah,
was
it's
the big
attention.
thing,
Yeah, right.
and I've used that
Mhm.
before in getting clients. The attention to detail because of the the spit and polish and the brass and all that stuff that
Yeah,
we did was, and the movements and everything was
yeah,
crazy. I mean, we trained for 8 hours to
sure,
get the 21 gun salute,
right.
8 hours a
Yeah.
day for weeks on end to get the nice crisp pop 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 instead of what you see on the movies where it's like so. Better stop
Makes me
making
think
gun
of
noises.
A Few Good Men every time. I know
Yeah,
that's a little bit different, but because that was the Marine.
right.
So,
Yeah,
but
but
that
yeah,
opening scene of A Few Good Men is just
there's
awesome.
so many opening scenes in like military thrillers,
Yeah,
Tom Clancy type movies or whatever
yeah,
that
yep,
start at a funeral in DC.
yeah, yep.
Gardens of Stone was actually filmed with with people from the old guard. Like it was
Hmm.
actually members of the old guard that starred in Gardens of Stone, which is an old
Sure,
movie, but
right.
it's pretty good. All right, well, I'll tell you some of my kind of
Yeah, I want to hear
heroes.
yours. This will be good.
So some of the heroes that I came up with, just in general, C.S. Lewis
Ah,
is one of mine,
love,
just
I
because
love
the way he
C.S. Lewis.
thinks
Yeah.
and
Yep.
both the very critical and like
Hmm.
thinker, teacher,
Hmm.
but then also the creative side with the the whole Chronicles of Narnia and all that kind of stuff. So C.S. Lewis is definitely one of my top heroes.
Hmm.
Um, Da Vinci, Leonardo da Vinci, same reason, very creative,
Yep.
did a lot of different things, painter, sculptor, inventor,
Mhm.
writer, like just the whole gamut.
Sure.
Um, Kind of an entrepreneur too, because he got funded to do all these things, which was
Right.
kind of
Yeah.
cool that he figured out a way to get people to pay him to do all this stuff.
Hmm.
Um, Here's one that most people don't know about: R.G. Letourneau. R.G. Letourneau,
Oh,
do you know
that's a
him?
good one. Yes, I've
Really?
read that. Yeah, I've read that biography. Yeah,
Have you?
that's
That's
yeah.
rare. I very rarely find somebody that's actually read it.
Oh, I
Yeah,
know, because it's
movers
there's
of
a
mountains, and
college
then
based on
yeah,
him. LeTourneau, is it LeTourneau College or
LeTourneau University here in
Yeah,
Longview, Texas,
yeah.
which is yeah, but that is an amazing autobiography.
Oh, I've had that book for years.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's and
that
he's
guy was amazing. You
you don't
mentioning that makes me want to go back and find that to reread that.
yeah, I mean, he's for those that don't know, like he invented most of the large earth moving equipment that is used by
Yep.
Caterpillar, and
Mhm.
Letourneau is still a name in the earth moving equipment. Most
Oh
people
yeah.
know Caterpillar, but if you go beyond Caterpillar and even bigger, then you get
Hmm.
into Letourneau type equipment.
Yeah.
And he invented most of that equipment because he was alive in the early 1900s, and he started moving earth with a mule and a plow. And then he said, "This is too slow." Because literally, what he
Yeah.
would do is he would put himself in a bind.
Yeah.
He would quote a project
Hmm.
to move earth, and he would underbid everybody, and then
Hmm.
he would have to figure out how he's going to do it. So he would have to invent a piece of machinery that allowed him to actually fulfill the order,
Sure. Yeah.
which is,
Yeah.
it's kind of crazy when you think about it. So that kind of ingenuity and just a lot of his principles and other things are
Sure.
amazing too.
Yeah.
But then if we move into like the fictional realm,
Hmm.
which I didn't hear any of your fictional characters, but this is the one that came to me late after reading the book when I was trying to figure out like who's my thing. And the one that came up for me is Dread Pirate Roberts, or Wesley from The
Hmm.
Princess Bride,
Oh, okay.
because he's crafty.
Hmm.
He was a little bit secretive and mysterious.
Hmm.
He played the long game. Like
Sure.
there's a lot of things about him. He was witty.
Yeah.
Um, you know, all that kind of stuff was that's the one that I really came up with. So I would probably combine him with, some of these other three. But if I
Yeah.
could only pick one character or
Yep.
one person, it would be the Dread Pirate. It's actually Wesley from The Princess Bride,
Right.
because Dread Pirate Roberts was his alter ego.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and then obviously that got passed on, which
Sure.
which I always thought was really cool too.
Yeah.
It's like Sia from Music Today, or
Hmm.
some of these DJs like Marshmello, like they can, the Blue Man Group, they can hang that up anytime they want because they just pass it on.
Absolutely.
You know,
Yeah.
so it's kind of cool.
Yeah.
So
The brand just passes from one
yeah,
one generation to the next.
and I've had ideas for brands like that I've never really
Hmm.
run with, but
Right.
yeah, that would be mine, is Wesley from The Princess Bride.
Oh, cool.
So
I love that.
yeah,
Yeah, from a fictional standpoint, I'd have to think about that because there's I love, I love characters that are um strategic
hmm
and have a lot of ingenuity. So I think about the old not the new MacGyver series, or the old series of
oh yeah,
MacGyver. Yeah.
yeah,
That was a guy that I always wanted to emulate as a
yeah,
kid.
yeah. I mean, who would want to be able to take bubble gum and a toothpick and whatever else and turn it into a bomb or
Absolutely.
something?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's right.
And
Yeah.
the principles of not having a gun and still being
Yeah.
able to fight your
Yep.
way out of anything,
That's right.
you know. Yeah, it's pretty
And the one movie that comes to mind, you talk about The Princess Bride, the Count of Monte Cristo
okay.
is, the so he was very patient, right?
Yes.
Not reactive, so very strategic in his revenge on those who did evil
Yeah.
to him. And he went about his his revenge in a very interesting way. So you have to watch it. If you've never seen The Count of Monte Cristo, is really good. Obviously it's based off of a book, but the movie is fantastic.
Well, that's one thing I would say about most um, bad guy mastermind types in movies
Mhm.
is how patient they are.
Bingo. Yeah.
They don't get a lot of credit for, like, as the movie unwinds, you find out they've been planning this for 36 years or whatever.
Yeah.
Like,
Right.
it's like I was watching a movie the other night on Netflix, and it was like 6 years, he'd been
Mhm.
planning this,
Right.
and one
Right.
day it all goes wrong. But the 6 years is worth like noting, like that's impressive. Like,
Yeah.
and how do you
That's
take
right.
some of those characteristics
Right.
um, of those supervillains, you know, yes, they always lose in the end, but there's something there you can take from even supervillains. So it doesn't necessarily have to be a good guy. It can be,
Yeah.
if we ever talk about, shadow work and kind of your dark
Mhm.
side, like
Right.
all these parts of you that you could pull out that you kind of suppress,
Right.
when I think about these supervillains, that's all the Bond villains,
Yes.
they've been planning revenge for 20 years. It's like one little thing happened 25 years ago. I mean, that's
Yeah.
Batman's story though, right?
Right. Absolutely.
Right. I mean, this was years and years of training and, you know, building
That's right.
equipment and all this
Yeah.
stuff
That's
from
another one.
from
Yeah.
when his parents, got killed when he was 10. Like
Yeah.
that's, that's
Yeah. It's
that
been
kind of
it's
dedication is something
yeah.
to
It's been
emulate.
his single focus for
Yeah.
his whole life, and
Right.
that you got to admire that. Even though it's a fictional character, but
Yeah.
you got to admire that from
But that's the point of
story
the book,
standpoint.
the
Yep.
alter ego effect. It's like, what characteristics can you pull out that you can then be like, I'm turning on my Batman switch for this situation? And I think another thing to mention about the book is that you could have different alter egos for different parts of your life.
You can. Right.
So if you're a father,
Mhm.
you can have an alter ego that's when you step through the door as a father, maybe coming home from work or a business trip,
Mhm.
you step into a different alter ego than the one you had for the sales,
Absolutely.
the
Yeah.
boardroom, because those two probably don't go together.
Yep.
So being able to switch in and out of, so it's kind of like a shapeshifter. What's the shapeshifters from X-Men? You
Yep.
could be, that's kind of something you want to be as well.
Absolutely. When my kids were younger, I used to take on a different persona than I do with them today because they're older,
Oh,
right?
yeah,
And you can't, you can't maintain that same persona.
right.
But I maintained a intimidating persona when they were younger, and as they kind of grew up and grew older, it's more of a fun loving, but yet um,
Well, now that they
the
can duct tape you
mentor,
to the
kind of the
wall,
mentor. Yeah, yeah, it's more of a mentor.
yeah,
You
because
know,
they're as big as you now, so they can duct tape you to the wall, and
right, exactly.
you gotta tread a little lighter now.
I a little bit, but I'm still stronger than both of them.
That's right. You got that old man strength.
We got on the tonal last night. They're like, "Dad, you can't press," because they set it up to 100 and on the bench, and they said, "Dad, we don't think you can do this because neither one of them can push it." And I'm like, "Go ahead, all right, go ahead and set it." So they set it, and I'm like, Psh.
There you go.
They're like, okay."
Yeah. Showing my workout from a couple of days ago. I think I did 30,000 pounds in a session.
Nice.
I was
Very
like,
cool.
I was exhausted, but yeah.
Oh, I can imagine.
Yeah. I've been watching you. I've been watching your numbers. So,
Dude, I did the leg killed me this week. I
Yeah.
literally had a hard time the next day walking. So
Yeah,
tonal
it's
is
crazy.
legit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's something about the cables and the eccentric and the
Yeah.
different modes. Like
Yep.
you're lifting more weight, I think, over the course of the rep
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
than you do if you're on free weights or something else. It's something's going on that's definitely different. I've read that it's like 25% heavier than free weights.
Well, I told them, you max it out at 100. And I told him, I said, this is because I can't keep it steady. I can push it out 4 or 5
Yeah.
times on that, but the whole time there's a frustration that builds in me because I can't keep that bar. There's a little shakiness there.
Yeah.
I'm thinking this never happens with free weights. It's a smooth
crazy.
transition, from
Yeah.
from top to bottom. So, so yeah, there's more resistance with the tonal.
There's something going on for sure. So
Yeah.
This segment brought to you by Tonal.
You can find it over at Tonal.
Yeah. They don't have a good enough affiliate program for me to promote them. So it's like you get a T-shirt or something.
They have an awesome product though.
It's a great product, but yeah, it's just like Peloton. It's like $50 credit at the store for T-shirts, and their T-shirts cost $150. It's like, come on, it's not even worth promoting.
The problem is now I have when family members I'm not talking my family, but extended family members outside of your family know that you have a tonal. They're like, "Hey man, you mind if I come by?"
Yeah. As long as they don't use your account, because then it messes up the algorithm.
No, they end up Yeah. So I've got like 50 accounts on the thing now. It's like people
that's cool.
by.
There's no limit on the accounts as far as I know.
That's right.
You set up your own gym right there in the neighborhood.
Exactly. It's,
Just
but I
tell them
love
to
it.
Venmo you
It's
$5 for every tonal session.
well, yeah. I'm putting them up on a payment plan as we
There you go.
speak. So, but no, it's a the book Alter Ego Effect. I recommend it.
Yeah, it's good stuff.
It's a really good way to really incorporate your own, you know, I guess your own hero effect in your
Yeah.
business. So whatever you're doing, and we mentioned a number of people. You know, you talked about David Dutton earlier, a friend of
Mhm.
ours. I told him I gave him some real kudos because he started his own podcast.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you listened to it, but I listened to because it was like a 5-minute podcast.
Yeah, I love that he's doing a 5-minute podcast. I'm like, how do
Yeah,
you do
David
that?
Dutton. Yeah, how does that happen? 'Cause if we could only, if we could only implement that.
Yeah.
But I gave him some feedback on that. I said, man, it's really good. And here's the thing that I loved about it, and you probably noticed the same thing. You know, he comes from, he's got the hero effect, obviously. You know, the
Mhm.
origin. He
Yeah.
talks about the origin in his podcast. His first podcast that he does, and it's the podcast is David Dutton Talks Small Business, I believe is the title. And so he talks about some of the failures, in his business where he started a business with a partner, obviously got sued, IRS, came after him, he had to pay the IRS, a lot of money
Yeah.
and learned how to invest a lot of that money into real estate, but learned some of the hard lessons of making a lot of money because people think, oh man, I make a lot of money. It's going to be great. Well, there's a lot of headaches that come with making a lot of money.
More money, more problems.
more money, more problems. Right. So he talks about that. And I told him, I said, you know what I enjoyed most about your podcast is that you presented the hero, but you presented that the flawed hero, and that's what you want to do. Like a guy that has problems, and David is open and honest with people about some of the mistakes he's made and some of the issues that he has in business, and so that's why he's completely transparent. And I think that's a good lesson for anybody out there is don't try to be Superman, which Superman is my least favorite comic, or superhero. DC
he's too
superhero.
perfect.
Yeah, he's way too perfect. He's flawless, and people admire the guy that has issues and has problems. The Spider-Man or the Batman, Iron Man that always has issues that they have to deal with outside of their hero status.
Yeah. By the way, did you know when I was doing my research, Tom Cruise was the original pick for Iron Man?
I remember that. I remember reading that. Yeah.
He turned it down.
Whew. Man, too bad for him, right?
Well, I know. He says he's still cool with it, but I mean, what are you going to say after turning that down? I just don't know that he could have pulled it off as well as Robert Downey.
I don't think he would have wanted to continue that franchise the way they have.
Yeah, so and I think that was his. He said that's the reason he turned it down was he could see that it wasn't his type of film.
Right. He's not into the the whole comic book series.
I mean, he did the one. What was the one he did with the aliens, the Tomorrow, and where he kept it was Groundhog Day, but sci-fi.
Oh yeah. I'm trying to remember.
That's probably as much CGI as he'll ever do because I'm sure that had tons in it. But that was it's not Day After Tomorrow because that was the weather thing, but it's one of those something tomorrow.
Yeah, it's I know which one you're talking about. I just can't remember the title.
Yeah.
And then the one about the he's done some really interesting movies. I think one of my all-time favorites is
Jerry Maguire.
Good Men. Nope.
A Few Good Men
that's a good
awesome.
one. That's a good one. Jerry Maguire is up there, but A Few Good Men is all-time favorite. Probably followed by Valkyrie and probably Jerry Maguire.
Yeah, A Few Good Men is awesome. I still watch that when I scroll past it. Like
that's one of those where the acting is so good you could watch it several times. You could literally watch it and then you could stop it at the very end and then go back to the beginning and watch it again without any problem, just because the acting is so good.
Yeah. There's so many great lines in it. I mean, it's just, it's good stuff. Tamara said something the other day and I went off on because it reminded me of a scene when he was looking for his bat. Like, where's my bat? I think don't ever mess with my bat. I was just cleaning up. Don't mess with my bat.
Don't mess with my bat. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, it was.
He really does think better with his bat.
It does. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that came on AMC I think it was sometime last week, and I caught myself just sitting there, staying up till past midnight just watching it because I was sucked in. I've watched that thing 50,000 times. But
and on AMC, man, once you get to the last half, you got to sit through
endless
commercials because
endless commercials.
They hook you with like 30 minutes without commercials in the front. And then the further along it gets, the more commercials
they extend them out. Yeah, exactly.
It's crazy. So
it's like a mortgage where they it's front loaded.
Yeah. So they backloaded all this stuff. But yeah, that's good stuff. So if you like kind of the idea of the alter ego effect, get the book because it goes into a lot more like detail and exercises and really kind of peels back the philosophy and what's going on and gets into some really deep psychology. It's not just picking a character. There's a lot kind of that goes behind it. You could just not read the book and just pick somebody that would work too.
Right.
But if you're the type that likes to know why and how and that kind of stuff, this is a great book for that.
I think people that read this would be really surprised to know that like the amount of celebrities
that use
and
this.
Athletes out there that use this to get themselves kind of in the zone. Right. I mean, so it's amazing once you read it. I mentioned Bo Jackson, but athletes do this all the time to get themselves in the zone and this like hyper focused.
Yeah, athletes, singers, anybody that performs in front of people, which we all do to some extent, which is kind of one of his points is like we're all on a stage or a field of play somewhere.
Yep. Exactly.
And we all have what he calls our moments of impact where we have the opportunity to show up. The question is, will we?
That's right.
And sometimes you need a little extra help psychologically to step up when you may not normally do it yourself.
One of my favorite characters, we talk, if we go into biblical times, Old Testament, one of my favorite characters was Samson, a very flawed human being by every account, really had some problems, but guy was, those moments where, the spirit comes upon him and he's just like, he wipes out an entire army.
With a donkey jawbone.
Yeah.
Jawbone of a donkey. That's savage.
That's savage. Yes.
Yeah. So,
but yeah, I mean, that's an alter. I mean, that's that alter ego effect coming upon him.
Yeah.
And so it's pretty cool.
My Old Testament guy would be Elijah.
Oh yeah, that's a good one. Yeah,
because he was half crazy, half creative. Like some of the stuff, the illustrations he did to make his points, were just were crazy. And so that's my favorite of the Old Testament prophets is Elijah. Like I've literally thought about getting. There's a tattoo I want, the Valley of Dry Bones.
Oh,
that would be a cool tattoo.
It would be.
But yeah, there's so many places to pull these from.
And these are strong people, but they all have their idiosyncrasies, flaws to them, but they're very strong people.
Yeah.
And that's what we admire about them. Ultimately, is that we admire the strength, but we admire the fact that they're strong, but yet they have weaknesses.
Yeah, you don't want Captain Marvel.
No.
Right? Captain Marvel was a letdown because she was just perfect. Like
too much. Yeah.
Too much. Like when they bring her back, if they ever do, I don't know what's going on with that, but they're gonna have to bring her down a notch or two.
Right. Yeah.
It was just like, wow, this is the most powerful person in the universe, and she just like wipes everybody out. Just snap. Like
nice.
Okay.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, she must not be too awesome because now she's doing Nissan commercials. So I don't know.
Exactly. Yeah. So, I feel like you could do a little bit better than Nissan.
Yeah. I mean, Captain Marvel, come on. I don't know. So, all right. Well, we'll wrap it up before we go down another tangent.
All right. Yeah, it's been fun. Good episode. To all of our listeners, you can find us over at persuasionbythepint.com. To all of our listeners, you can check us out over at the our Facebook group, Facebook page, facebook.com/persuasion by the pint. Check us out. Stitcher Radio, iHeart, Spotify, you name it, we're there. So
John. It's been fun. I guess we'll see you all next week, and have a great weekend.
See ya.
All right.